Silence holds an undeniable strength, often underestimated in a world that values noise and constant chatter. It is not merely the absence of words, but a deliberate act of control, a conscious decision to withhold rather than to give away. When a person remains silent in moments where others expect a reaction, they disrupt the flow of expectation, creating an air of unpredictability that unsettles those around them. People are conditioned to expect responses, explanations, and justifications. But when silence replaces these, confusion takes over. This confusion forces others to reflect, to question, and to overthink, giving power to the one who chooses silence over unnecessary words. A person who speaks less is often perceived as someone with depth, someone who listens more than they talk, someone whose words, when spoken, carry weight. It is easy to say everything on one's mind, but restraint demands discipline, it demands patience and self-awareness. Silence makes people wonder, makes them anticipate, and in that anticipation, they become vulnerable. The one who controls their words controls the situation. A silent person is never fully understood, and what cannot be understood cannot be easily manipulated. The greatest power lies in mystery, and silence cultivates that mystery effortlessly. There is something about silence that forces people to listen more carefully. In a heated discussion, the loudest voice often gets ignored, lost in the chaos of competing opinions. But the person who remains silent, observing, calculating, and waiting becomes the most intriguing presence in the room. When they finally decide to speak, their words demand attention because they are not spoken out of impulse, but out of intention. Silence is not passivity, it is strategy. Those who understand its value use it as a shield and as a weapon, knowing when to withhold and when to reveal. Silence commands respect in ways that words often fail to do. When a person does not rush to explain themselves, to defend their position, or to argue back, they create an aura of confidence. A person who does not feel the need to justify every action or every thought is a person who knows their worth. They do not seek validation from others because their silence speaks louder than any explanation ever could. This is why silence often intimidates. It is a sign of inner strength, of an individual who does not feel the need to prove themselves at every turn. In the presence of silence, others reveal themselves. When one chooses not to respond immediately, they allow space for others to show their true intentions. A person's reaction to silence tells more about them than words ever could. Some become uncomfortable, filling the air with unnecessary words to break the stillness. Others become anxious, assuming meanings where there are none. In this way, silence exposes people, stripping away pretenses and revealing their insecurities. The one who remains quiet observes these reactions and learns more than they ever could by speaking. Silence is a tool that can shift the dynamics of power in any interaction. It can be used to de-escalate tension, to make a statement without speaking, to show authority without force. The strongest leaders, the most influential thinkers, and the wisest individuals understand the art of silence. They know that power is not always in being heard, but in making people want to listen. It is not in proving oneself repeatedly, but in allowing mystery to work in one's favor. Silence creates space for reflection, for observation, and for understanding. And is a force that, when wielded wisely, can change the course of a conversation, a relationship, or even a life. Silence has a unique way of unsettling people, creating an atmosphere of uncertainty that forces them to think, question, and sometimes even doubt themselves. When someone remains silent in situations where a response is expected, it disrupts the natural flow of interaction, leaving others in a state of confusion. People are conditioned to anticipate reactions, to hear explanations, to witness emotions unfold through words. But when silence replaces those expectations, it throws them off balance. They begin to wonder what the silence means, what thoughts might be hiding behind it, and whether they have miscalculated the situation entirely. This confusion is a powerful tool because it shifts control from the person who is speaking to the one who is withholding their words. The one who chooses silence creates a sense of mystery that is difficult to interpret. Others may try to fill in the gaps, assuming meanings that may not even exist, leading them into their own cycle of overthinking. This overthinking often works against them, causing hesitation, self-doubt, and uncertainty about their own stance. When a person refuses to react as expected, they break the rhythm of communication, making others feel exposed, while they themselves remain unreadable. Silence, in this way, becomes a form of control, dictating the pace of a conversation or even the outcome of a situation without a single word being spoken. People naturally fear the unknown, and silence creates an element of the unknown in any exchange. It forces others to grapple with their own assumptions, to reconsider their words, and sometimes even to second-guess their own beliefs. Those who master the art of silence understand that withholding a response can be more powerful than any argument. It makes people wonder whether they have said too much, whether they have made a mistake, whether they should continue speaking or stop altogether. This uncertainty puts them at a disadvantage, while the silent observer remains composed and in control. In conflicts, silence has the ability to disarm even the most aggressive individuals. When someone expects anger, expects an argument, expects resistance, and is met with nothing but stillness, it confuses them. They do not know how to proceed, how to gauge the situation, or how to adjust their own emotions accordingly. A person who does not react emotionally is a person who cannot be easily manipulated or provoked. This can be incredibly frustrating for those who rely on confrontation to assert dominance, because silence removes their ability to gauge the impact of their words and actions. It takes away their sense of control, leaving them to fight against their own uncertainty rather than against the person in front of them. Beyond conflict, silence also commands authority in everyday interactions. It signals that a person is not easily swayed, that they are not desperate for validation, that they do not need to prove themselves in every conversation. In negotiations, the person who speaks less often has the upper hand because silence makes others uncomfortable, pushing them to reveal more than they intended. In relationships, silence can create an air of intrigue, making a person more mysterious, more respected, and more difficult to figure out. It sets boundaries without the need for excessive explanation, teaching others that not every question deserves an answer and not every provocation warrants a response. Those who understand how to use silence strategically know that it is not about avoidance, but about control. It is about choosing when to engage and when to step back, when to reveal thoughts and when to let others wonder. It is about understanding that the moment one stops giving away too much, they start gaining more in return. People reveal themselves when they are met with silence, showing their impatience, their insecurities, their need for affirmation. The one who remains silent gathers information, while the one who speaks too much gives it away freely. Throughout history, the wisest individuals have understood the power of silence, using it as a tool to observe, to learn, and to influence without unnecessary words. Wisdom is not found in speaking the most, but in knowing when to speak and when to hold back. Those who possess true knowledge and insight do not feel the need to prove themselves in every conversation, nor do they waste their energy on meaningless arguments. Instead, they listen, they process, and they wait for the right moment to speak, ensuring that when they do, their words carry weight and significance. Great leaders, philosophers, and thinkers have long recognized that silence allows for deeper understanding. Instead of rushing to respond, they take the time to analyze situations, to consider multiple perspectives, and to choose their words carefully. This patience sets them apart from those who speak impulsively, reacting without thought or strategy. In moments of tension, the wise remain calm, knowing that silence often reveals more than words ever could. They let others reveal their emotions, their intentions, their weaknesses, while they themselves remain unreadable and in control. Silence is often mistaken for weakness, but in reality is a sign of confidence and self-assurance. The wise do not need constant validation from others, nor do they seek approval through excessive talking. They understand that true influence is not about overpowering conversations, but about knowing when their voice is truly needed. In a room full of noise, the one who speaks the least is often the one who is listened to the most. When a person who rarely speaks finally decides to share their thoughts, people pay attention, not out of obligation, but out of curiosity and respect. The greatest minds in history, from philosophers like Socrates and Confucius to leaders like Mahatma Gandhi and Nelson Mandela, all understood the importance of silence. They did not rush to defend themselves at every turn, nor did they engage in unnecessary debates to prove their intelligence. Instead, they let their actions and carefully chosen words define them. Their silence was not empty, it was filled with thought, with strategy, with purpose. They knew that silence could be a form of resistance, a form of strength, a way to command attention without demanding it. In personal relationships, the wise use silence to communicate in ways that words cannot. They understand that not every argument needs a response, not every question deserves an answer, and not every situation requires explanation. Silence sets boundaries, teaches patience, and forces others to reflect on their own words and actions. When someone is met with silence instead of an expected reaction, they are left to process their own behavior, often realizing more in that quiet moment than they ever would in the middle of a heated discussion. The wise know that sometimes the most powerful statement is the one left unsaid. Even in moments of conflict, those with wisdom choose silence strategically. They do not allow emotions to dictate their reactions, nor do they let anger push them into saying things they might later regret. They understand that words, once spoken, cannot be taken back, and that silence, when used correctly, can be far more powerful than any argument. They observe, they listen, and they wait until their words will have the greatest impact. This ability to control one's speech, to remain composed under pressure, and to choose silence when necessary is what separates the wise from the impulsive. In every area of life, silence grants clarity. It allows the mind to settle, to process thoughts without distraction, to find solutions without external influence. The wise use silence to their advantage, knowing that the less they say, the more they understand. They recognize that in a world where everyone wants to be heard, the real power lies in knowing when to remain silent, leaving others to wonder, to listen, and ultimately to respect the depth that silence represents. Silence is one of the most effective ways to protect your energy, creating a shield between you and the constant noise of the world. Every day, people are bombarded with conversations, arguments, expectations, and unnecessary interactions that drain their mental and emotional strength. Engaging in every discussion, responding to every opinion, and justifying every action can become exhausting, leaving little room for peace. When a person chooses silence, they are not just avoiding conflict, they are actively preserving their inner balance, refusing to let external chaos disrupt their state of mind. Not every situation requires a response, and not every person deserves access to your thoughts. The ability to remain silent in the face of provocation, negativity, or meaningless chatter is a sign of self-awareness and control. Instead of wasting energy on arguments that lead nowhere, silence allows a person to disengage, to step back, and to observe without getting emotionally entangled. It is a conscious decision to prioritize inner peace over unnecessary confrontation, to recognize that not everything needs to be addressed, and that sometimes the most powerful move is to say nothing at all. There are people who seek reactions, who thrive on drama, who pull others into their storms to feel a sense of control. These individuals feed off responses, using words as weapons to provoke and manipulate. But silence denies them that power, removing their ability to dictate emotions. When someone expects anger, defense, or explanation and is met with nothing, they are left powerless, forced to sit with their own words rather than drawing energy from the reactions they had hoped to trigger. This is why silence is often the best response to negativity. It starves the unnecessary conflicts that would otherwise drain energy and disrupt mental well-being. Beyond protecting against external negativity, silence also nurtures internal peace. In moments of quiet, the mind has the space to breathe, to reflect, to recover from the constant demands of the world. Speaking too much, engaging in every debate, and explaining oneself repeatedly creates mental exhaustion, leaving little room for self-reflection or clarity. Silence, on the other hand, provides a break from the endless cycle of external stimulation, allowing thoughts to settle, emotions to be processed, and focus to be regained. It is in silence that creativity flourishes, that understanding deepens, that true rest is found. Choosing silence is also a way of setting boundaries, of teaching others that access to your thoughts and energy is a privilege, not a right. When a person responds to everything, they become predictable, easily read, easily influenced. But when they remain silent, they create an element of mystery, signaling that their energy is not freely available to be drained by anyone who demands it. This boundary forces others to think before they speak, to reconsider the weight of their words, and to approach conversations with more care and intention. It is a form of self-respect, a way of preserving personal energy for the things that truly matter. In a world that constantly demands attention, where people are expected to react, explain, and prove themselves at every turn, silence is an act of self-preservation. It is a choice to conserve energy for meaningful conversations rather than wasting it on pointless exchanges. It is a way of maintaining control over one's emotions, refusing to let others dictate feelings or responses. Silence does not mean weakness, avoidance, or submission. It means choosing battles wisely, focusing energy on what truly matters, and protecting inner peace from the chaos of the outside world. Those who master the art of silence understand that true power comes not from speaking the most, but from knowing when to remain quiet, preserving energy for the moments that truly deserve it. Silence has a way of amplifying words, making them carry more weight and significance than if they were spoken without restraint. In a world where everyone is constantly talking, explaining, and justifying, those who speak less often stand out the most. Their words are not lost in the noise, but rather anticipated, listened to, and remembered. When someone who rarely speaks finally chooses to say something, people naturally pay attention, not just because of what is being said, but because the silence before it has built curiosity, respect, and intrigue. It is not about saying more, but about making sure that what is said truly matters. Words that are spoken too often or too easily lose their value, just like anything that is overused. When a person speaks without pause, constantly giving away their thoughts, opinions, and emotions, their words blend into the background, becoming just another voice in an already noisy world. But when someone masters the art of silence, they create a contrast that forces people to notice when they do speak. It is this contrast that makes words more powerful, giving them an edge that demands attention. Silence, when used wisely, turns speech into something rare and meaningful rather than something expected and ignored. Those who speak less are often perceived as more thoughtful, more intelligent, and more intentional with their words. They are not speaking just to fill the silence or to hear their own voice, but because they have something truly worth saying. This intentionality is what gives their words more impact, making them resonate longer and deeper than words spoken without restraint. People who do not speak unnecessarily are often seen as having more control, as being more self-assured, because they do not feel the need to prove themselves with excessive explanations or justifications. Instead, they let their silence build credibility, knowing that when they finally do speak, their words will be taken seriously. Silence also has the ability to create suspense, to build anticipation, and to make others lean in to listen. A well-placed pause before speaking can be more powerful than the words themselves, creating a moment where people are forced to stop and truly absorb what is being said. This is why great speakers, leaders, and storytellers all understand the power of silence. They know that words alone are not enough. It is the timing, the delivery, and the spaces between them that create true impact. They use silence not as an absence of speech, but as an active tool to enhance the weight of their words. Beyond making words more impactful, silence also gives a person control over conversations. When a person speaks too quickly, they risk giving away too much, losing their ability to steer a discussion in their favor. But when they remain silent, they force others to fill the gaps, often revealing more than they intended. Silence makes people uncomfortable, leading them to talk more, to explain themselves, to second-guess their own words. This shift in control gives the silent person an advantage, allowing them to shape the conversation with fewer words but greater influence. They choose their moments carefully, ensuring that when they do speak, their words land exactly as intended. People remember words that are spoken with purpose, and purpose is best highlighted when surrounded by silence. A person who talks constantly may say 1,000 things, but only a few will be remembered. However, a person who speaks only when necessary ensures that every word is noticed, processed, and valued. Silence forces people to listen, to engage, to reflect, making even the simplest statements feel profound. It is not the volume of words that matters, but the depth they carry. And nothing gives words more depth than the silence that surrounds them. Silence is not just an absence of words, but a deliberate and strategic choice that can influence situations, control narratives, and shift power dynamics without direct confrontation. Knowing when to speak and when to remain silent is a skill that can change the outcome of conversations, relationships, and even conflicts. Those who understand the weight of silence recognize that it is not about passivity or avoidance, but about control. Silence can be used to make others uncomfortable, to make them second-guess themselves, or to force them into revealing more than they intended. It is a tool that, when used correctly, can create an advantage without a single word being spoken. Many people feel pressure to fill every moment with words, fearing that silence may make them appear weak, unsure, or uninformed. But the opposite is often true. A person who speaks too much risks saying things they shouldn't, giving away their thoughts too freely, or allowing emotions to dictate their responses. On the other hand, a person who remains silent holds the power of uncertainty. Others are left wondering what they are thinking, whether they agree or disagree, whether they are planning something or merely observing. This element of mystery forces people to approach them with caution, making them more difficult to predict, control, or manipulate. In negotiation, silence is one of the most effective strategies. When a person refuses to fill the silence, they shift the pressure onto the other party, forcing them to speak first, to reveal their position, or to make compromises out of discomfort. Many people will continue talking just to break an uncomfortable silence, often making admissions or concessions they would not have otherwise made. A skilled negotiator knows that saying less often results in gaining more, allowing silence to work in their favor rather than against them. The one who speaks the least in a negotiation often walks away with the best deal simply because they allowed the other side to feel the need to fill the space. In personal relationships, silence can serve as a means of setting boundaries, signaling self-respect, or making others reflect on their actions. When someone is met with silence instead of an argument, they are forced to sit with their own thoughts rather than being distracted by an immediate response. This can be far more impactful than any words spoken in the heat of the moment. Silence makes people uncomfortable because it denies them the reaction they expect. It removes the emotional fuel that drives many conflicts, making the other person reconsider their approach or even realize the weight of their own words. Leaders and individuals in positions of authority often use silence to maintain control over a room. A leader who does not speak impulsively, but instead waits, listens, and observes before responding commands more respect than one who reacts without thought. Their silence forces others to listen more carefully, to value their words more highly, and to approach them with greater seriousness. It is a form of psychological dominance, a way of asserting authority without needing to be loud or forceful. True influence is not about speaking the most, but about knowing when to withhold and when to reveal. Silence also allows for greater clarity, preventing rushed decisions and emotional reactions that could lead to regret. When facing difficult situations, those who take a step back and choose silence give themselves the time to process their emotions, consider their options, and respond with logic rather than impulse. They do not allow others to dictate their pace or pressure them into speaking before they are ready. In this way, silence is not a passive act, but an active choice, a way of ensuring that words, when spoken, have the greatest possible impact and achieve the desired outcome without unnecessary explanations or justifications.